You already know this. When a revolutionary text is translated into the language of empire, say the teachings of a radical rabbi translated into Greek, when a revolutionary text is translated into the language of empire, it becomes a text of empire. This is hegemony. Likewise, when we attempt to translate the work of a spiritual community, if we try and translate that into the spreadsheets and metrics used by commerce and business, we make a real risk. We take a risk of subverting our work. We take the risk of maybe mistaking a balanced budget for a successful congregation. I know, don't worry. I know we have to operate within the law, and we need to be respectful of the money that is given and received, and we need to honor these gifts and then use them to do great things. But I'm reminding us that this is a religious organization. This is not a for-profit business. This is not even a non-profit organization to do some work, something on something. This is a religious community, and we're not making widgets to sell to earn a profit. We're ideally we're making a difference, and that can be very hard to show on an itemized spreadsheet. And this is why when there's some like hot new trends in business world and management, and when these ideas are proposed to be used in a setting for to solve problems in a congregation, it behooves us to get very careful, because if we try and put business models on religious communities, something is likely to get lost in the translation, okay? And it could be something really important. Trying to stuff the work of a congregation into a business model is kind of like trying to stuff me in my big black robe into a three-piece suit. It's just not going to fit really well, okay? Now, this doesn't mean that all business theory is completely incompatible with the work of a congregation. It just means that we have to be very clear. We have to hold fast to what is the basic understanding of the difference between a religious community and a commercial enterprise, right? Because when we blur the lines between those two, things get icky really quickly. I mean, think of Joel Osteen. Okay? Think of anyone touting spirituality with really bright teeth and slick hair and a whole line of merchandise. Think of the promise of peace and salvation. If you call right now, all credit cards are accepted. If a minister asks for your money before they ask for your name, please be very, very careful. So this is why we're very careful when we adapt business theories for use in a congregation. Okay? However, businesses are made up of people and congregations are made up of people. So sometimes some theories do actually translate pretty well because they're about how to work well with people. Okay? Back in 1990, a man named John Carver wrote a book, published his book, Boards That Make a Difference. And he wrote this book to be used by boards of nonprofits and public organizations. And he outlined the necessity for people who are governing such bodies to be absolutely clear on the purpose of the organization. John Carver was the person who was responsible for this whole tidal wave of mission statements that began in the 1990s. His model, he called it policy governance. And it was interesting because it seemed to be very important for discerning what is the purpose of an organization. And so some churches picked it up and started trying to use it with varying results. Part of his model involved not just identifying the mission, but it also involved like rewriting all of the policies of the organization. In fact, scrapping most of the policies and starting fresh. And so that's why it was called policy governance. Here in our Unitarian Universalist pond of congregations, starting in the early 1990s, one congregation, Unity Church Unitarian of St. Paul, they began working with Carver's model, and they found that it transformed how they saw themselves. It transformed how they functioned as a whole congregation. It transformed how they treated one another and how they functioned with their larger community outside their own walls. It was nothing short of radical. And it was a lot of work. Once they really figured out how to make it work, they decided to share what they had learned, to spare some others some of the mistakes they had made. So they founded Unity Church Unitarian. They founded Unity Consulting, and they went ahead and they just started tinkering with John Carver's model, and they tinkered and, well, basically retrofit it to really fit our UU congregations. It doesn't really emphasize what they came up with. Doesn't emphasize the policies anymore. But it still really reframes the work of what a board of trustees does. Instead of just being administrators or managers, the work of the board becomes that of discernment, clarification, assessment, and regular reflection. Unity Consulting has created their own model now. They call it the nested bowls. And for a fee, they will send a consultant to work with a congregation that really is ready to change their whole governance model. And they ain't cheap, but they're really, really good. The good news is that they've also gone ahead and published a book outlining their model with instructions on how to implement it. And the book is actually much more affordable. And it's remarkably succinct. But it's still a radical text. And the Board of Trustees here at this congregation has read it, and they have committed to doing the work of that transformation right here, which means that you'll be helping them. But don't worry, let me explain. The Board of Trustees had a retreat a couple months ago, and during that retreat, they did some work. They asked some really big questions. They contemplated questions like, whose are we? Who do we belong to? To whom are we accountable? The simple answer is that there is no simple answer. Even to ask such questions is so huge. It's tiring. It's humbling. It's powerful, profound work. Trustees, would you agree? But here are some of their answers. As trustees, they are accountable to who is already here and who is yet to arrive. However, ultimately, they are accountable to the mission of this congregation. What about that mission? It's one that you wrote several years ago. It kind of feels dusty right now. It doesn't feel like the living heart of this congregation. Not many people can even remember it. Has anyone memorized it? That gives you a clue right there. I suspect that you put a lot of work into writing it. But since then, a lot of things have changed. And now it's time to write a new mission, a new one for who you are right now. Don't worry. The board is going to do the heaviest work. All the rest of y'all have to do is show up and have some snacks and begin to talk. 2 people together, 4 people together. You begin to talk and you share your stories and you share your dreams and you begin to you provide the raw material that the board will work with, because the board is going to ask questions of as many people as will actually answer. And some of the questions might be something like, when was a time when you were changed by something that you encountered here? Story. They might ask you for just words. What qualities should we embody in all that we do here? And when you get ready to answer, you're going to think not just of your own personal core values, but what are the values that people are coming here to have nourished? Perhaps you'll tell the board that you see us valuing wonder or integrity or courage. Maybe there'll be other words. But these words have to come from you, which is why the board has scheduled 4 different times to meet and have these conversations, to share these stories, to talk about these qualities and these values. The first one is going to be here on Wednesday. 6:30 is when we have soup. 7 o'clock is when they start talking. And if these 4 different times, you can sign up. It's right out here in the hall. If these 4 times are not enough, they'll schedule more. And if you can't make one of those 4 times, go and meet with a board member one-on-one. You need to do this because the board members need your words. They need your stories, and they're going to gather them together. They're going to pull all of these words, all of these stories together, and they're going to start identifying what is key to this place. And they're going to sift and they're going to sort, and eventually they're going to notice how certain ideas come together or stand out. And they're going to look for variations on a theme or maybe one idea that gets expressed several different ways. And this work can be a little tedious. And it can be thrilling. Eventually, they're going to winnow out the values that best express the foundation and the living heart of this place, and they will place them together. Click. What are the values? The timeless qualities of our religious community that we will carry forward, that will carry us forward in the future. This will be the bottom bowl, the values bowl. The next up, they're going to start working on discerning what difference do we hope to make in this place? If we're sharing all of these lived values, or if we're living all these shared values, what will it look like? Again, words will come forward. Words that will go into the mission bowl. Click. A mission statement will emerge. And I'll admit, mission statements are not terribly specific, right? But they do get at that heart of the place. And they speak to the change that this place is going to make in the lives of the people here and the lives of the people who are yet to come. What difference? The efforts to discern the mission are going to be very powerful. I cannot give the words. I cannot do the work, but I can support and I can minister to the trustees as they work. And as they're working, I will warn them to consider how even a single word can become a stumbling block. It could become a barrier to participation, a barrier for the people who are here, barrier for the people who are coming. This is how serious, how deep this work is. And I'll remind them and recommend that they not tie our sense of success to something that we have absolutely no control over, okay, or that we're not really prepared for. Because this is an amazing congregation of spirited people, but we are not going to broker peace in the Middle East. It's not going to be our work. We may be called to serve, but our current kitchen can never be licensed to actually be a place where we prepare food to serve food outside of this place. So if that's what we're called to do, we're going to need a different kitchen. However, as the mission emerges, we're going to hear from the stories, we're going to hear from the dreams, and they're going to begin to collect all of the specific outcomes, what it will look like, what it will actually look like, what we'll be able to see happen when we make a difference. And perhaps the dreams will be a larger space, a different kitchen. Perhaps the specific outcome will be stronger ties to our interfaith neighbors. Perhaps our outcome will be a generation of children who are connected to this congregation and this way of being religious. Maybe with more work, they will name the explicit intended results. And these will be placed in the ends bowl. The ends, what specific measurable differences will we make? And for whom? By some identified, timeline, date in the future. These are the nested bowls, right? Our values shape and hold our mission, which informs and supports our intended impact, our ends. Collecting the words, sifting and sorting, putting specific language to our dreams, all of this is going to take a couple of months. It's amazing. It's transformative work. Why am I so optimistic about this? Why am I so positive? Oh boy, more work. Because before I became a minister, I was a lay leader in a congregation. And as a lay leader, I did this work. I was serving on a board, and we brought in Unity Consulting. And it was amazing. And we held so many conversations. Oh, my land. So many words. And then there was finally one day where we just holed up with a tray of Subway sandwiches and a whole lot of, Post-it easel paper and hundreds of little Post-it notes. And we sorted and we quibbled and we advocated and we laughed. There was negotiation. There was consensus. There was never compromise. In compromise, somebody gets left behind or something gets left out, and we could not afford to leave anyone feeling like they had lost. We worked steadily throughout the day, and then just as we're getting tired, just as we're getting crabby, suddenly some words coalesced on paper, and right in front of us, it was a mission statement of such beauty, such truth that it just struck us all silent. It was our mission statement. It was entirely ours, and it was stronger than any one of us. It was purer than any one person's vision, and it sounded. We said it aloud all together, and it rang like a bell in our chests. And tears welled up, and they were tears of exhaustion and tears of recognition, tears of pride in seeing ourselves so clearly, in 9 words. Just like that. We all fell in love with our congregation all over again. Not bad for a day's work. So this is what you have asked of your board and what your board is going to be asking of you. To love this congregation forward. To love it as it is and as it is becoming. To love who is here and who is yet to arrive. To love it mindful of its past and love it towards its best future. This is their work. At the very least you can do is just sit down and start giving them. Start telling them your dreams for this place. May it be so, and blessed